By the time Rita reached home, she was breathing very fast. "Hannah!" Rita screamed the moment she opened the door to their tiny room, but the bed was empty. Hannah was not there. Rita became very worried. No, no, no. She's with him. She's probably with Ethan right now. She began walking back and forth like a trapped animal in a cage. Her mind was running wild, full of thoughts she could not control. She could not tell Hannah the truth. If Hannah knew Ethan was rich, she would only love him more. Instead, she needed to plant fear in Hannah's heart. She needed to twist the story to make Ethan look dangerous, like he was playing games or hiding something. If Hannah believed that, maybe she would reject him and push him away, and Rita could steal him away. Meanwhile, at the construction site, Ethan could barely sit still. He arrived earlier than everyone else, pacing back and forth as if the ground could give him the answer he wanted. He looked at the gate and he looked at the road. Every minute felt so slow, like the clock had stopped moving. The other workers saw him, they laughed and made jokes, but Ethan barely heard them. He only thought about one thing: what if Hannah says no, he whispered to himself. It was only now that he realized just how deeply he had fallen in love with her. Lucas, his best friend, came and touched his shoulder. "Calm down, my friend," he said with a smile. "I have seen the way she looks at you. I will be very surprised if she says no." But Ethan could not calm down. He had never felt this way before. It was like his whole heart was in someone else's hands, and he had no power over it. Finally, when it was almost noon, Hannah showed up carrying her bucket of meat pies just like she always did. But today, she looked a little different. Her steps were slow and her face was quiet, as if she had been thinking about something very deep. Ethan felt his chest beat faster and faster as she got closer. When she reached him, she gave him a gentle smile and started attending to the other workers who had come to buy snacks from her. When she had attended to all of them, Ethan approached her impatiently. "Hannah," he called softly and went straight to the point. "Did you think about what I told you yesterday? Have you thought of an answer yet?" Hannah did not answer right away. She smiled at him and asked, "How many meat pies do you want today?" Ethan looked at her in disbelief. He could not believe his ears. He had stayed up most of the night and even came to the construction site earlier than everyone else, just waiting for this moment, and her first words to him were about how many meat pies he wanted. Suddenly, she started laughing, seeing how confused he was. Then she lifted her head and nodded slowly with a serious face. "Yes, Ethan," she said in a small, calm voice. "I did think about it." For a moment, Ethan could only hear his heart beat faster, waiting for the words that would come next. Then Hannah took a deep breath. "Ethan, you are different. You are kind. You respect me. You make me believe that there are still good men in this world. I thought about it all night, so much that I could barely sleep." She paused for a moment and looked deep into Ethan's eyes, which were already burning with suspense. Then she finally said, after thinking for hours, "I realized, I love you, too, Ethan. And yes, I would love to meet your father, too." For a moment, Ethan did not move. He felt like his ears were playing a trick on him. Did she really say it? Did Hannah truly love him back? Joy filled him as he laughed, a full laugh that came from deep inside his heart. He hugged her passionately and held her in his arms for a few minutes. From the side, Lucas whistled loudly and started clapping when he saw Ethan and Hannah in a romantic embrace. "Ah, our boss has found his queen," he shouted with a smile. The workers laughed and cheered, but Ethan did not turn to look at them. He could not take his hands off Hannah because, at that moment, nothing else mattered. He knew deep inside that this was the woman he had been waiting for all his life, and now that she loved him too, he would never let her go, no matter what happens. After the passionate moment, they both sat and talked for some hours before Hannah left to sell the rest of her snacks. She promised to show up the next day so she could accompany him to see his father, unknown to her that his father was Mr. Blake, one of the most powerful billionaires in the city. By the time Hannah finally returned home later that evening, Rita had already composed herself and practiced her plan in her head. When Hannah opened the door, Rita didn't wait for her to sit down. She quickly said in a low, worried voice, "What answer did you give Ethan? I hope you rejected his lame proposal." Hannah smiled shyly and bent her head. "No, I didn't. I told him how I truly felt, and he was very happy. We are going to see his father tomorrow." Rita's face suddenly turned hot with rage and jealousy, but she tried her best to conceal it from Hannah. She stood up and went closer to her. "Hannah, I don't think Ethan is who he says he is. I have a bad feeling about him. I think he's hiding something from you." Hannah kept her empty bucket of snacks and looked at Rita curiously. It was the first time Rita would bring up a topic about Ethan so strangely. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" she asked softly. Rita folded her arms across her chest, trying to look calm even though jealousy was burning inside her like fire. "I just have a bad feeling, Hannah," she said, forcing her voice to sound steady. "Men like Ethan, they act all nice at first, but once they get what they want, they walk away. I know it. I can feel it. He's hiding something." Hannah frowned, confused. "Rita, that's not fair," she replied. "Ethan has never done anything to hurt me. He's been nothing but kind and compassionate towards me. Why would you say something like that?" "Because I care about you." Rita suddenly screamed at her, her voice coming out louder and sharper than she planned. "I don't want to see your heart broken," she continued. "Hannah, open your eyes. He's just a poor construction worker. What kind of future will you have with him? He can't even take care of himself. How will he take care of you?" Hannah stayed quiet for a long time as though she was searching for the right words. "Rita," she finally said, "I love him. I know you don't like him, but Ethan makes me happy, and that's all I've ever wanted. Someone who truly sees me. Someone who makes me feel like I matter. I do not care if he is just a common construction worker." Rita's heart raged with anger. For a split second, the truth almost jumped out of her mouth, but she stopped herself. Instead, Rita gave a bitter little laugh. "Why do you think he loves you? The same man that complimented me first. Do you think he would be with you or even look at you if I hadn't insulted and humiliated him that day? He is clearly a womanizer. He asked you out because you are naive and soft, and he knew you would never say no. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when he disappoints you," she said coldly, turning her face away. Hannah left the room to wash her bucket of snacks, but she felt a strange feeling in her chest. She couldn't understand why Rita was acting this way. They had been friends for years, Rita had always been protective, always looking out for her. But this time, it didn't feel like care. It felt like Rita was hiding something from her, almost as if she was jealous of her relationship with Ethan. The next morning, Hannah woke up earlier than usual. She decided she wouldn't sell snacks today because it was the day she would meet Ethan's father. She wore her cleanest gown. But just as she was about to leave, Rita blocked the door. "Hannah, don't go," she said sharply. "You're making a huge mistake. What if he's just playing with you? What if he's only pretending to love you?" Hannah didn't know what to say. She had never seen Rita this desperate. But she loved Ethan, and she had already promised him. "I know you don't trust him, but I do. I have to go. I can't live my life always being afraid," Hannah replied, pushing her gently away from the door. Rita frowned and stepped aside. "Fine, go. But don't say I didn't warn you." Hannah walked out without another word, and Rita sat on the bed in rage. She started thinking, planning, searching desperately for the next move she could make. "It has to be me or no one else," Rita told herself. When Hannah reached the construction site, Ethan was already waiting. He led her away from the site toward a luxurious black SUV parked just a few streets away. Hannah looked surprised. "Ethan, whose car is this?" she asked him. Ethan smiled and replied, "The car is ours for today. Don't worry, I'll explain everything soon." The ride to his father's house was quiet but comfortable, and Hannah's heart beat faster with every passing minute. Finally, the car slowed down and stopped in front of something Hannah had never seen before, a very huge gate that opened automatically. Hannah's eyes opened wide in surprise as the car drove inside. Beyond the gate was a mansion so large and beautiful it looked like something from a dream. Her heart started to pound harder. "Ethan," she called, her voice shaking. "Where are we?" He turned to her and took a deep breath. "Hannah, there's something I've been keeping from you. I didn't tell you before because I needed to know if you loved me for who I am and not what I have," Ethan explained. She looked at him with confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ethan smiled and began. "I'm not just a construction worker, Hannah. This house, it's my home. I'm the only son of Mr. Blake, the billionaire and CEO of Blake Enterprises." Hannah looked at him in shock. You mean you've been pretending all this time?" "Yes," Ethan said gently. "Because I wanted to find someone who loved me, not my wealth or status. Every other woman I have met over the months all looked at me as if I was not a human being just because I was a construction worker. But you were different. You proved to me that all women are not the same. You changed the way I see the world. Hannah, you are special." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. Then she finally said, "Ethan, I don't care about any of this. Not the house, not the cars, not the company you talked about. I loved you when you were just a man at the construction site. That will never change. I promise." Ethan smiled deeply and took her hands. "And that's why you're the only woman I've ever wanted in my life," he said and hugged her. Ethan held Hannah's hand all through as they both walked into his father's house. He could feel how fast her heart was beating, and every few seconds he would assure her that she was safe. When they arrived at the living room, Hannah couldn't stop looking around. "This place is too beautiful, Ethan. Are you sure I should be here?" she asked. Ethan turned to her, smiling softly. "You belong here, Hannah. You belong with me." Suddenly, a tall, elderly-looking man stepped into the room. His presence alone commanded respect. "Dad," Ethan said with pride. "This is Hannah." Mr. Blake looked at her with curiosity as she bowed her head politely and greeted, "Good afternoon, sir." Mr. Blake smiled and replied, "Good afternoon, my dear. Welcome to my home." Some minutes later, they were seated at a long dining table. Servants brought in beautiful meals, and they began to eat. At first, Hannah was nervous. She had never eaten in such an elegant place, but Ethan kept smiling at her, reminding her that she was safe. Yet, Hannah could feel Mr. Blake's eyes on her throughout the meal. He was calm, but she could sense he was studying her, like he was trying to read her heart. Finally, when the meal was almost over, Mr. Blake cleared his throat. "My son," he said, turning to Ethan. "I am glad you finally brought a woman home. I am proud of you." Then he turned to Hannah. "And you, my dear, you seem very polite and very respectful. But you must understand that this family has built an empire with sweat and sacrifice. My son is my only heir, and I cannot risk our wealth falling into the wrong hands." Hannah sat and listened quietly. "That is why," Mr. Blake continued, "before I give my blessing, I must ask something of you. Before you marry my son, you must sign an agreement stating that you will leave with nothing from this family's wealth if you should divorce." The room became very silent. Ethan frowned immediately, but before he could talk, Hannah touched his arm gently and silenced him. Then she turned back to Mr. Blake. "Sir," she said, "I understand your worry, but when I met Ethan, he had nothing but dusty clothes and a kind smile. I loved him then without knowing who he really was. I came into his life with nothing but my love and my honesty. I am not here for your money. If Ethan and I get married, we will build our own wealth. We don't need your riches to be happy. We just need each other. She looked at Ethan and back at his father. And besides, she smiled as she looked at Ethan, why would we need a divorce, sir, when I intend to love your son for the rest of my life? You raised a responsible and compassionate young man, sir. Mr. Blake was silent for a long moment. He had heard many women speak about love, but none of them had spoken with such quiet conviction and selflessness. Finally, Mr. Blake smiled. You are remarkable, he said softly. I was wrong to have misjudged you. And for the first time, Mr. Blake looked at Hannah not as an outsider, but as his family. After the meal, Hannah was shown to a beautifully furnished guest room where she would stay for the night. But Hannah could hardly sleep. The house was too big and quiet, and her heart was still racing from all that had happened that day, the pressure from Rita to reject Ethan and the revelation of Ethan's true identity. It felt too much for her to bear in one day. Finally, she stepped out into the corridors of the mansion and began to wander. There were so many doors and so many hallways, it felt like walking through a palace. But as she walked past one corridor, she saw a light coming from a room at the end. She paused for a while, then walked closer. The door was slightly open, and she saw Mr. Blake sitting on a couch in his study, reading a book. Mr. Blake looked up as soon as he heard her footsteps and asked her to come in. She stepped inside the study and sat on one of the chairs. You couldn't sleep, he asked. Your house is so big, sir, and my mind is full of thoughts, she answered. Then Mr. Blake closed his book and leaned forward. Hannah, he said in a soft tone. I owe you an explanation and an apology. She looked up, listening quietly. When I asked you to sign that agreement earlier, I was not trying to humiliate you. I was trying to protect my son. He paused for a while, then continued, when Ethan was just a little boy, his mother left us. She didn't just leave, Hannah. She ran away with every last penny we had saved at that time. I was left with a baby boy in my arms, an empty bank account, and a company that was barely surviving. Hannah's eyes widened as she listened. It took everything in me to raise Ethan alone while building this company into what it is today. I never remarried, not because I didn't have the chance, but because I could never trust easily again. So, when my son told me he wanted to find a wife, I was scared. I didn't want him to go through the same betrayal and heartbreak that I went through. That is why I insisted he find someone who loved him without knowing about our wealth. That is why he pretended to be a poor construction worker. Because I needed to be sure she truly loves him. Hannah could see the pain behind his eyes, and she understood why Ethan had done what he did. Mr. Blake continued, but tonight, Hannah, when you spoke at the table with such honesty and such love, I knew you were not here for money. I knew you were truly in love with my son, and for that I am grateful. By now, tears had gathered in Hannah's eyes. I do love him, she said softly. With all my heart, she said with a breaking voice. At that moment, Ethan appeared at the doorway. He had been searching for her and overheard just enough of the conversation to know what had been said. He saw her sitting there with tears shining in her eyes and smiled. He went to her, and as they both went back to Hannah's room, Mr. Blake told Ethan with a smile, "She's a good one, Ethan. Hold on to her." As they walked back down the hallway, Hannah held Ethan's hand with her heart overflowing with gratitude and joy. For the first time in a long time, she not only felt loved by Ethan, but she also felt accepted into the very heart of his family. The next morning, a beautiful SUV dropped Hannah at home. Rita peeked through the curtain, and her eyes grew wide when she saw Hannah stepping out of the SUV with joy on her face. "Rita!" Hannah called happily, running inside. Rita pretended to be happy and excited as Hannah happily told her all that happened, about the big mansion, Ethan's father, and the conversations they had. Wow, that's wonderful, Rita said. Hannah was so caught up in her excitement that she didn't know Rita's smile had hardened into something dark. She turned away so Hannah wouldn't see the feeling of anger in her eyes. Enjoy it while it lasts, Hannah, she thought bitterly. Because soon you'll see that men like Ethan are not as perfect as you think. A slow, wicked smile formed on her lips as an idea formed in her mind. She knew exactly what to do, not just to break them apart, but to make Ethan turn his back on Hannah completely. That morning, while Hannah was at home resting and humming happily to herself, she had no idea that across town, Rita was already putting her plan into action. Rita walked quickly to the construction site. Her heart was beating fast, but it wasn't from fear, it was from the excitement of what she was about to do. When she reached the site, she looked around searching for Ethan, but he was nowhere in sight. Lucas, Ethan's closest friend, noticed her. He walked up to her. "You're Hannah's friend, right?" he asked. "Yes," Rita said softly, pretending to be shy and worried. "I came to see Ethan. I need to talk to him." Lucas shook his head. "Ethan? Oh, he won't be here anymore. Yesterday was his last day on site." Rita felt disappointed. She hadn't expected that, but she quickly pretended to be worried and concerned. "Can I talk to you? It's very important." "It's about Ethan," she said in a worrisome voice. Lucas studied her carefully. "All right, what is it?" Rita opened her bag slowly and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to him with trembling hands. "Please look at this." Lucas opened it, and his eyes widened. Inside were pictures of Hannah. She was standing by the roadside at night, dressed in a short, revealing cloth. Lucas looked up sharply. "What is this? Where did you get these?" Rita took a deep breath, her voice full of fake sorrow. "This is Hannah's past. Back when we were in school, she had no money. She sold herself to survive. No one knows. But Ethan deserves to know before it's too late." Lucas looked at the pictures again, his face dark with sadness. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, still hoping it wasn't true. "I wish it wasn't true, but I saw it myself. Please, you must protect Ethan. He's such a good man. He doesn't deserve to be fooled." She lied perfectly. Lucas thanked her. Then Rita turned and walked away. But as soon as she was far enough, her fake sad face turned into a wicked smile. Her plan was working. Soon, Ethan would see Hannah as dirty and unworthy. And when his heart broke, she would be there to hold him, to replace Hannah, to finally have the life she believed she deserved. Later that afternoon, Ethan was in his father's living room thinking of Hannah happily when his friend showed up. "Lucas," Ethan said, standing quickly when he saw his best friend. "You came just in time. I was about to call you. Yesterday was perfect, better than I ever hoped. My dad loves Hannah. Everything is finally," but Lucas interrupted him and asked him to sit down. He looked around, making sure no one else was close. Then he reached into his jacket and gave Ethan a small envelope. "You need to see this," he said. Ethan frowned and slowly took the envelope. When he pulled out the pictures inside, his heart almost stopped. "Where did you get these?" Ethan asked with trembling hands. "From Rita," Lucas answered without thinking twice. "She came to the site today. She said Hannah used to sell herself. She didn't want you to know." Ethan couldn't believe his eyes. "No, this can't be true," he said with tears flowing down his eyes. He remembered Hannah's words. She spoke with pride even when she had no money. So, could that all have been a lie? Was she only pretending? For the first time since meeting Hannah, joy left his heart. His mind was restless. 1 hour later, after Lucas had left, his father walked in and stopped when he saw his son's face. He had been sitting there for some minutes, and in front of him was the envelope. Mr. Blake sat beside him. "What is it, my son?" he asked. Without a word, Ethan pushed the envelope toward him. Mr. Blake opened it, looked at the photos, then looked back at his son. "Where did you get these?" his father asked. But strangely, he didn't look shocked or surprised. "Lucas got them from Rita. She said Hannah used to sell herself when they were in school," Ethan explained. For a moment, the room was silent. Then, Mr. Blake slipped the photos back into the envelope and placed it gently on the table. "The girl I met last night is not the girl in those pictures," Mr. Blake said. Ethan lifted his head and looked at him in shock. "I know what it looks like when someone pretends to love for money. I lived it with your mother. Hannah is not like that. I saw the way she looked at you. A woman cannot fake love like that. Not in her eyes and voice," he explained. Ethan couldn't believe his ears. It was the first time his father would say such nice things about a woman. "You need to talk to her," Mr. Blake said gently. "Ask her yourself. And while you do, think about this: who gave you these pictures? And why now, just when you and Hannah are so close?" Something inside Ethan shifted immediately. His eyes cleared, and he stood quickly. "I need to see Hannah," he suddenly told his father, then called his driver to take him to where he had dropped Hannah in the morning. As the driver took him to Hannah's house, Ethan's mind was a storm of emotions. A lot of questions kept running through his mind. When the car stopped in front of Hannah's house, Ethan didn't wait for the driver. He pushed the door open, his heart beating like a drum, and walked fast to her door. But instead of Hannah, he saw Rita. She stood there with a smile, as if she had been waiting for him. "Where's Hannah?" he asked with a desperate voice. "She went out," Rita said sweetly as she walked closer to him. "But maybe it's good that I met you first. You deserve to know the truth before you get too deep." Then she folded her arms, pretending to look worried. "I told Lucas those pictures because I care about you, Ethan. Hannah isn't who you think she is. Back in school, she sold herself. She hides it well, but not from me. I just don't want you to get hurt. You're a good man, Ethan. You deserve a woman who is clean and has no shameful past." Ethan looked at her with surprise. "A woman like you, right? Don't think I forgot the way you mocked and humiliated me when you thought I had nothing," Ethan said with anger in his eyes. For the first time, Rita's fake smile disappeared and her voice twisted into anger. "Hannah doesn't deserve you," she shouted. "She stole you from me. Everyone knew you looked at me first. You only went to her because I rejected you, but you can have me now. I am all yours, Ethan." She moved closer to him and tried to touch his face, but Ethan stepped away from her. Before Ethan could say anything, a shaky voice filled with tears came from behind. "Rita," the voice called. Both of them turned and saw Hannah. She stood just a few steps away. Her face was wet with tears, and she had heard everything. Rita's eyes widened. She quickly started lying. "Hannah, Ethan was asking me out, too, but I told him I can't." Hannah's voice trembled. "I heard it all, Rita. You don't need to lie anymore." Ethan rushed to Hannah and hugged her. Rita stood frozen in shame and humiliation. Then Ethan turned to Rita. "You tried to ruin the best thing that ever happened to me. You thought your lies could turn me against her, but all you did was show me who truly loves me and who never did." Rita suddenly fell to the ground on her knees, crying hard. "Please forgive me. I was jealous. I was foolish. Don't hate me. Please." Hannah slowly turned to her with her own tears still falling. "Rita, I would never have forgotten you if life became better for me. You were my only friend when everyone else left me. But you let jealousy turn your heart bitter." Rita started crying harder, begging for her forgiveness. But Hannah took Ethan's hand, and together they walked away, leaving Rita on her knees. Months later, the city was filled with excitement. Ethan and Hannah's wedding was the biggest wedding of the year. Ethan also gave her a very huge wedding gift, a very big bakery in her name. Rita sat alone watching it on television, tears streaming down her face. She whispered to herself, "That could have been me. If only I hadn't let pride, greed, and envy destroy everything." But it was too late. Ethan and Hannah built a life filled with trust and love. They carried the lessons of pain and forgiveness, and they lived happily ever after, while Rita lived in regret for the rest of her life. The pictures she gave to Lucas were pictures she had created with a FaceSwap AI tool. Now she's lost her friendship with Hannah, who would have definitely supported her. Moral of the story: true love is proven by character, not by cash. Ethan hid his wealth to find a heart that sees beyond status, and Hannah's kindness, patience, and respect passed the test. Jealousy destroys what friendship should protect. Rita's envy pushed her to lie, and she lost both trust and companionship. Honesty and courage save relationships. Ethan chose to verify, not assume, and Hannah spoke with truth and dignity. That is why their love stood strong. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I truly appreciate you. What are your thoughts on Ethan, Hannah, and Rita? Please share your views in the comments section, as I would love to read from you. There's another very interesting story coming in a few days, so be sure to subscribe and turn on your notification bell so YouTube will notify you immediately when I upload it. If this story touched you, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.